Okay. Sector planning. So this is energy efficiency planning again for energy passing through the site. And with this, we'll then start to be able to get really clear about that placement exercise. So what sort of energies pass through a site?
It's a wind, water.
Wind. Wind, sun angles. So winter and summer sun angles are quite different. Water, so precipitation.
Condensation.
And also like water bodies, like rivers, whatever.
Air.
So wind, yeah.
Oh yes, wait, but it's
yeah.
temperatures of air.
Temperatures of air,
What do you mean by
fit that in
energy?
winter.
I mean, because you have wildlife.
Yeah, wildlife pass through. It's anything that's going across our piece of land that we don't have control of. So it could be people.
Aeroplanes.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's put pollution, wildlife. We talked about seeds blowing in. That could be something of concern.
That can come with wildlife as well. With things which are eating fruit could disperse seed by.
Yeah. So where's wildlife coming in? If we know we've got a forest on this side of our garden that's bringing in deer, we might have to put a fence up, stop deer coming in, so things like that. Anything else coming through on land? Traffic maybe, like cars and... If we had a big farm with a road through the middle of it, you know, that we might need to buffer our water runoff, because all that water running off the roads full of heavy metals, we don't really want that in our fields that are organic, so we might have to do something there. Okay, so that's a bunch of things. So, let's take our little hill again. Here's our hill, and these are little contours, so it's quite steep here, and this is over there. So this is just to get an idea of how it applies. We're going to do some design work tomorrow and use this sort of stuff. Okay, so our prevailing wind is coming from here, so that's going to inform us where we put wind breaks, things like that. And this is the river here that we had. So let's say we've observed the land. They say in good design, if you buy a piece of land, you should observe it every season of the year. Obviously, we don't have much time in modern world to do that, but you have to be aware of what might happen in different seasons, for example, flooding. So we go there in winter and we know that this portion is liable to flooding. Maybe it's a 10-year flood cycle, and we can see evidence of that on the land already. It's a pretty critical factor. Like there's a guy who bought a big piece of land who was planting thousands of trees, but had been to the land several times throughout the year before he bought it, and hadn't been early in the morning, so never saw that deer were using the land. All his trees got eaten. There's thousands of pounds worth of trees. So just by going at different times of day, you've got different information. And observation is a real key part of permaculture science, like by looking at things, what's going on. So you might also observe plants that are there, and we can look at lists of plants that indicate the soil conditions. So it might be, like certain weeds will show that the soil is deficient in certain minerals or whatever. So it might be this area here is very infertile. I'm just rushing through this and pack some stuff in. But you can look up online, look at plant indicator species, and you'll find lists of which plants mean different things. So this was south facing, wasn't it? Let's say, we'll say there's some wood on there. So here's a bit of forest coming down the hill, and it actually goes along like that. Okay, there's a forest. It's deforested on top of the hills, and we know that cold air sits on top of hills and at the bottom of valleys. Okay, so this area here is liable to very cold air, which means frosts, right? And then there's cold air down here. So let's say there's a frost line. This is all stuff we'd have to do by either looking at local information, looking at local weather patterns, you know, looking at past data of temperatures, or by observing on the land throughout the year. So I'm just making it up for the sake of the exercise. So we know this bit is frost-ridden. So let's say there's a road going through, so here's a road through the woods that goes down there. So now we've got summer sun angles. This is going to be a really sunny area around here. The sun's going to be high in the sky, and this bit will get a good amount of sunlight during the day. But during the winter, when the sun is really low in the sky, this is going to be a big frost pocket. It's going to take the sun a long time to get around there, so frost is particularly prevalent there, so yeah. And we can see that in our gardens by...
We're in the southern hemisphere at this point, are we?
Say again?
I think we're in the southern hemisphere at this point.
Yeah, because the east is over there.
The east is
so
the other
that
side.
gets-
It's all right.
the sun gets
It's
there
okay.
in the morning.
Sorry.
I can live with southern suns.
Yeah, but it makes sense in general terms, right?
Yeah.
So, what does this mean? So, let's now think about this exercise again. If we were wanting to place our house, we've got a lot more idea now where to put it. If we were in, say, we need to think about disaster planning, which is, so, let's just have a look at what sort of disasters might we face?
Flood.
Floods?
Power
Say again?
Power cutouts.
Power cutouts? Yeah, possibly.
Hurricane, depending on where in the world you are.
Wind damage anyway.
Yeah. So storm winds, let's say. Yeah. In other parts of the world you might have fire risks, like forest fire risks, stuff like that. So that would, I mean, all this can apply whatever climate you're in, really. It's the same thinking. You just have to consider different things. But say now we wanted to put our house in there. We don't want it sitting on top of the hill, probably, because of the cold air there. It's going to be hard to heat and keep warm. We might want the view, but let's say we don't want it there. We don't want it in the flood zone, we don't want it in the frost zone, ideally, because that's going to be harder to keep warm too. We also don't want to grow food in this region, and we don't want it in this frost pocket. So now we've got this region that looks ideal for growing food, and also for our home. It might be that the key line is around here. We're not going to go into key line, but you could look that up if you're interested in it. So this is the highest point we could store water cheaply, so we might end up building a dam there and situating our home underneath it, where we can gravity feed it, and we could put all our vegetables in zone 1 and 2 in this region, and the whole thing can be gravity fed. So it might be zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 along here. It can all be irrigated if need be. Does that make sense? It's like a way of narrowing down sensible options. So, say you did a design like for someone in the future on this exact piece of land, you might say to someone, well look, between here and here is the best place to put your house because of these reasons, and we've taken all these things into consideration. So it doesn't actually matter where you put your house here or what shape the zones are, but the fact that you've arrived at this is the most valuable, fertile, safe piece of land is very clear. So that's what sector planning is about. It's about cutting out areas that are of risk, and so we can design into them.